My name is Pat Murphy, Head of Environment Knowledge Transfer with Teagasc, based here in Johnstown Castle. And this is Tom O'Dwyer, Head of the Signpost Programme, and he's based in Moore Park. We're just going to be talking to you today a little bit about the support that Teagasc will be there to supply you with, or to provide you with, in your sustainability journey over the next number of years. And I suppose the first question, and it's been addressed I think by a lot of the other boards, is why do you get involved, and why is it so important to look at sustainability on your farms over the next number of years? And I think if we look at the support that advisors have been giving farmers for the last 30, 40 years, it's been predominantly about price, profitability, production. But I think the whole issue of profitability is now going to be very fundamentally related to the sustainability of the produce we produce. And your profitability is based on fundamentally two main things: the price you get for your produce and the amount you produce. And now both of those are going to be heavily linked to sustainability. In relation to price, it's kind of two elements of it. One is the general prices that Ireland as a country can achieve for its agricultural produce is much more linked now to sustainability, and in the future is going to be even further so. And it's linked to the fact that we do produce a sustainable produce, but is also going to be more about showing that we are continuing to improve. Having said that we produce sustainable product, agriculture as an industry has a very fundamental issue with environmental issues. I mean, we produce 37% of our greenhouse gases. We are responsible for 98% of ammonia. We are the primary issue where we look at our at-risk water bodies. 53% of them have their main issue is agriculture. So there are a lot of issues out there pushing us into doing something about our environment, and that's being looked at by processors, being looked at by international buyers, and it's absolutely imperative for the price we receive for our produce to be able to reduce that impact and do it on a continual basis. But increasingly also there's going to be an individual farm element to that, with sustainability bonuses coming on stream, whereby farmers will be paid for, and you can argue that they will be paid more or paid less if they don't achieve sustainability levels. That's going to become an increasing feature of farming. So it's preparing ourselves for the inevitability of that. But the other side of the equation, the amount we produce, if we don't manage to reduce our environmental footprint over the next number of years, it's inevitable that policy will start to curtail the amount we produce. We have binding targets now in relation to greenhouse gases and in relation to water quality. If we don't achieve them, it's going to hit us in terms of what we produce and hit us in terms of our product. That's a bloody good reason to start looking at sustainability. I suppose the second thing we've listed there is because it's the right thing to do, and I think everybody in the world has become more aware of the impact of what we're doing to our planet, to the future of the planet. I think the notion that as a farmer I'm just a little cog in the wheel, I don't really do anything to impact the planet, I think that's a dead notion. Every single farmer in the country is playing their part in terms of polluting, if you want to put it that nasty way. But every farmer in the country equally needs to look at how can we improve the sustainability of our farm and reduce that impact. In terms of policy, policy has a huge part to play. At the moment, we have a likelihood that, or a possibility that policy will begin to restrict what we're doing to some extent. But that's very much dependent on what happens over the next few years. If we can manage to reduce our impact as an industry, well then policy won't need to do that, and we'll have a lot more freedom. As well as restrictive type policies, there's also a huge amount of policy coming on stream in the new CAP. to support farming in terms of the eco scheme with conditionality in relation to the acres scheme, which is going to support farmers to implement environmental measures. But there's also a number of other measures that are coming in place in terms of support for farmers, in terms of training, support for farmers in terms of knowledge transfer, with potential initiatives around the knowledge transfer scheme to encourage people to work together in groups. Also to put in place services like ASAP, the signpost programs, to support farmers in terms of their environmental achievement. So Tom.
Okay, so Pat and I then have come up with a simple 4-step process which can allow farmers to support farmers to become more sustainable on their own farm. So we have it here in the middle of the board. The first stage is, the first recommendation is that every farmer has to look inside their own farm gate, because it's not about what your neighbour is doing or about what's happening for all of Irish agriculture. It's about what's happening on your farm. And ultimately then the performance of Irish agriculture from a sustainability point of view will be the collection of all of your individual performances. Okay? So if we're going to change how we're performing as an industry, we have to change it on each individual farm. So then we have to look inside the farm. So the first thing is, where we want to help each individual farmer to understand their own farm sustainability performance. So as Pat has already said, over the years we've put a lot of focus on productivity and profitability. Our advisors now are increasingly going to focus on the sustainability performance of your farm, so that you can understand your farm's sustainability performance. The second then is, having looked at the performance of your farm, your starting point, well, the next question then is, what can I do to change that? How can I improve that over time? Because as Pat has already said, the indicators for the agricultural sector as a whole, in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, ammonia emissions, water quality, are not right at the moment. So we need to change that. So what are the opportunities on your farm? Now, as you go through the rest of the day, you're going to see the technologies and you're going to hear about the research that's being conducted to give you the list, the practices that can make a difference in terms of sustainability. They're listed on the board here behind me, on the middle right of the board. There are some of the practices that you're going to see. You'll have picked up a copy of the Signpost Sustainability Self-Assessment in your booklet when you started the event. And what we're asking you to do is to take that checklist, to go home, to sit down at the kitchen table with your wife or partner or son or daughter, whoever's on the farm with you, and complete the checklist. So to identify how you are performing from a sustainability point of view. If you're getting a lot of ticks, if you're ticking a lot of the boxes, yes, that's good. If you've got a lot of blank boxes that you're not able to tick yes to, that's not so good. There's a lot of room for improvement. So the first point is, check where your farm is in terms of sustainability, then identify the opportunities for improvement. We were saying today, Pat and I, identify 1 or 2 things that you can do better or differently. So it could be to start using protected urea next year. It could be to start using low emission slurry spreading. It could be to incorporate clover. But decide what is the item on your farm that can move your farm in a more sustainable direction. Then it's up to you to implement that action. You're the person that's going to, be farming next year. We can support you as advisors, but you're the person that's going to have to maybe ring the co-op to place the order for the fertilizer, as an example. And the fourth part then is, with your advisor, to continue to monitor your performance, your sustainability metrics over time, to see whether those figures are changing. But for me, it starts by sitting down to establish your starting position, and that's the Signpost Sustainability Assessment Sheet. And I've mentioned the sustainability metrics a couple of times during my couple of comments. And on the previous board, you would have heard about metrics in relation to productivity, the amount of grass grown, the amount of milk solids produced or live weight produced, the stocking rate and things like that are talked about on the previous board. But on this board, we want to add to that. We have to introduce some sustainability metrics. And when you're talking about sustainability metrics, you have to talk about them under 3 headings. The first is financial, which is the productivity and the profitability of the farm. and we have talked about those at previous open days. But we need to also introduce other measures of performance, and they're under the headings of environment and social. And under environment, we can talk about greenhouse gases, so the amount of greenhouse gases produced on the farm. We can talk about water quality, and that's amount. You can talk about the water quality in the local stream or river, but you can also start to talk about the nutrient use and the efficiency of nutrient use on your farm. And the final area is the amount of biodiversity on your farm. So the percentage of the farm devoted to the biodiversity, and perhaps the quality of the biodiversity that's on your farm. And in relation to social, you can talk about your own age as a farmer, whether you have a successor identified, your involvement in a discussion group or other community activities, and also the hours you work on the farm and so on. And finally then, in terms of those metrics or measures of performance, in terms of the sustainability metrics, it is important that those measures are in balance. You know, it's important that you're not very strong, say, in the financial sustainability metrics, but very weak in the social or the environmental. It's about getting them into balance. Okay? So I'm going to hand back to Pat.
Okay, and just in terms of the supports that are available, I mean, for most people, the first port of call is your own Teagasc advisor or your own ACA advisor. And those guys have gone through, guys and girls, have gone through a huge transformation over the last number of years in bringing sustainability into their work program. But it's still important for you to ask the question of them when you're with them. How can I improve the sustainability of my farm and make sure they're dealing with the issues? We have a number of dedicated services as well. The ASIP service, which I mentioned earlier, is a free advisory service for farmers in local priority areas for action, areas where water quality is seen to be problematic, where a group of scientists from the local authority water group go in, do an analysis and feed back information on which advisors then work with farmers to deal with the issues. So they go in and work with farmers to identify what risks are on that farm to water quality and trying to sort them out. And in fairness to farmers, they've been hugely responsive to that service, and those who have had services delivered to them have been putting in place a lot of measures. Number of other programs, the Signpost program, which Tom is the head of, now is in place just over a year. It now has 120 odd demonstration farms to act as a resource for both learning and for dissemination of information to the rest of the farming community about what can be done and what can be achieved by farmers working on sustainability. Grassland is our key resource, and effective management of grassland, as the lads earlier have talked about, is the absolute key to a profitable and sustainable Irish agriculture. And the Grass 10 programme has been pushing over the last number of years and will continue to focus on improved sustainability and improved production from our grass base. And that's supported by tools like Pasture Base Ireland. And in relation to nutrient management, and remembering nutrients are the chemical and organic fertilizers we use are huge in terms of greenhouse gas emissions and water quality. The effective use of them, the safe use of them, and the more productive use of them gives us a combination of better output and lower losses to the environment. And on the profitability side, we have tools like Profit Monitor. But finally, I suppose one of the key tools that has delivered so much of the increased production and the profitability of our Irish agriculture has been the discussion group. And I think it can play the same role in relation to sustainability. We will be seeing in the next year a new KT scheme from our new CAP, and hopefully it will be a little bit more flexible than the ones in the past, and will encourage a lot more farmers to get involved. It is a key tool for development of you and your farm, but it's also very much a development in terms of social interaction with other farmers, and also maybe within the groups a bit of healthy competition between groups and within groups doesn't do any harm in terms of improving performance. So Tom.
Okay, so in terms of our messages then to, in summary, we in Teagasc want to help you to transition your farm to a more sustainable farming future. We believe that we have to start that journey by establishing your sustainability numbers for your farm, so that you can talk confidently with others about your greenhouse gas emissions or your level of nutrient use or whatever. We also want to help you to learn new skills, and we can do that through, as Pat said, discussion groups or dedicated training courses. We want to help you as you change your farming practices, and we believe that it's one farming practice at a time. This isn't going to be a massive flick of a switch and everything changes. It's going to be a work over a number of years to change a number of practices, maybe one practice at a time, until we get to a better future. But the final point is that in my view, the key thing for all of us now is that we sit down and identify the first step that each of us individually can take on our farm to move towards a more sustainable future. So think about the first step and then make a commitment to make it happen.